Imagine this. You've been prepping for days. You feel good about this upcoming interview. And then you walk in or log on and bam, it's not just one person across the table from you or on the screen with you. It's four. Does this sound familiar? Maybe even a little nerve-wracking? Hey, I'm Abby and welcome back to the Life Work Balance YouTube channel. I'm a career and interview coach and I'm here to help people just like you feel more confident and strategically prepare for their job search and any upcoming interviews. Today, we're tackling panel interviews. Those multi-interviewer setups that feel like a job interview on steroids. I'm going to break down what they are, how they work, and give you practical tips on how you can walk in confident and walk out leaving them impressed. Whether you've got a panel interview coming up or you just want to be ready for the future, stick around because you're going to leave this video feeling like a pro. Let's dive in. So what is a panel interview? Well, simply put, it's when you're interviewed by more than one person, usually 2 to 5 people, sometimes more. I've heard of panels as big as 7 or even 10 people. It's like facing a small jury. They're deciding your fate while also deciding if you're going to be a good fit for the job or the organization. Companies love this type of format because it saves time. If they want multiple people to get a good feel of who you are and what you do, and if you're going to be a good fit for the organization and the role, what better way to interview you than get everyone in the same room at once? Imagine if you have to interview with 5 people on an interview panel one time versus interviewing with each of those 5 individuals at separate times. That's a lot of time for you and a lot of time for the organization. It's much more efficient to get everyone in the same room one time to complete an interview. So who could be on this panel? Well, it really varies on the organization and the type of role that you're interviewing for. You might have an HR person on the interview panel to make sure that you're a good fit for the organization or who's there to guide the hiring team through the process. You might have a potential boss who's there checking your skills, or a potential future teammate to see if you might collaborate well and interact well together. You might even have someone who isn't on your direct team, but could be a key stakeholder that you'd be interacting with frequently during your role with this organization. This could be a potential customer or client, or someone in a different department who you might work with regularly. The point is, they are all there to size you up from different angles, which can feel intense, but it also gives you the opportunity to shine in multiple ways. So how does a panel interview work? Well, let's paint the picture of how this actually plays out. You're either physically in person having this interview, in a conference room, more likely than not, sitting on one side of the room while everyone else is kind of lined up on the room in front of you. Maybe you're at the head of a conference room table and they're in a U around you. Or if this is a virtual interview, you are on one side of the screen and you see the Brady Bunch on your screen. They would be in a grid across your screen, regardless of what type of interview platform you might be using, like Zoom, Teams, WebEx, etc. Each interviewer usually has a role or an area of focus. For example, one might grill you specifically on your resume. Another might test your problem solving with a hypothetical scenario that they pose to you as a question. The questioning style can go a couple of different ways. The most common is that they all have a list of interview questions in front of them and they go round robin style. In order, they ask specific questions that have been prepared ahead of time for you to answer. Other times, it could be more of a free-for-all, where follow-ups to your answers are coming at you from all different directions. And occasionally, it feels more conversational, like a big chat that you're just having with multiple people. But don't let that fool you. They're still analyzing you from every angle. Panel interviews, just like standard interviews with one other person, typically run 30 to 60 minutes. Though I have coached clients who have faced hour-and-a-half or 5-hour interview sessions. Now, this is usually an interview day where they go to a location and they interact with various people within the organization. There's different pieces to this interview day, etc. But for your typical panel interview, this will be 30 to 60 minutes. The setting could be very formal, everyone in suits with prepared questions, sitting at a conference room table, or a little bit more relaxed. Maybe they're mingling with you, standing in person, you're shaking their hands, you've got a drink of water in your hand. There might even be snacks. But either way, if it's more structured and formal, or if it's more relaxed, it's a test of how you handle pressure and juggle attention from multiple people. But spoiler alert, you can still ace this with the right prep. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty of what you will experience. First off, you're under a microscope, multiple perspectives at once, shining the spotlight on you. One person might be laser focused on your technical know-how, while another person is honed in on your body language and hearing how you explain yourself. It's like being judged on American Idol, but instead of singing, you're selling your skills, your experience, why you are the best fit for this role, this team, and this organization. The questions will likely be a mix as well. You can definitely expect behavioral-based questions. Things like, tell me about a time when you led a project. Technical questions that are tied specifically to the job, and even situational questions like, how would you handle a tight deadline? Here's where it gets tricky, the dynamics. You might feel overwhelmed keeping track of who is who, or someone might jump in mid-answer with a curveball question. And then eye contact, that's a balancing act. Do you focus on the single person who asked you the question, or do you glance between everyone? So here are my top 5 tips on how to ace a panel interview. First, research the panel if you have the ability to do so. If you get names ahead of time, like a calendar invite with additional emails included on that invite, do some research ahead of time. Google those people, look them up on LinkedIn, search them on the company webpage, find out their role and what they might care about as it relates to the role that you have applied to and are interviewing for. Even if you don't have names, study up on the company's structure so you're not flying blind. Tip number 2 is to prepare for diverse questions. You'll face a grab bag of questions. Like I mentioned earlier, behavior-based questions, technical-based questions, and even situation-based questions. You might even get hammered with a curveball question. Like I was once asked how you would describe the color red to someone who cannot see. Moral of the story, practice everything. If you haven't seen my videos on how to prepare for an upcoming interview using generative AI, now is a perfect time to bookmark that video and watch it next. Ultimately, you'll want to use the STAR or the CAR method. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you likely know CAR is my preference. And this is that simple formula to help you prepare for any behavior-based and really even situation-based interview question. CAR stands for context, action, result. STAR, which is very similar, just a little bit more complicated, which is situation, task, action, result. If you use these formulas to answer interview questions, you will be able to answer these questions in a clear, confident, and concise way. My third tip is to engage everyone. This is where that eye contact comes into play. When you answer an interview question during a panel interview, start with the person who has asked you the question. Look at them directly. Then glance at other people too, just like if you were including them in the conversation. If you know the interviewers' names, drop it into the conversation casually. Like, that's a great question, Mark. It builds rapport and shows that you're paying attention. Now, my pro tip with this is that if you don't know their faces and their names prior to the actual interview beginning, make notes while they're introducing themselves. If it's a virtual interview, likely they will show up as the Brady Bunch with their names below or in the corner of their little video icon box. But if they're in person and they don't have name tags or nameplates in front of them, take your pen, your piece of paper, and jot down their names as they go around introducing themselves at the beginning of the interview. If that introduction piece doesn't happen, then just roll with it. My fourth tip is to stay calm and composed. If you get interrupted or you lose your train of thought, don't panic. Take a deep breath, maybe a quick sip of water if it's there, and smile. That buys you a second to regroup. They're not trying to scare you. They want to see how you handle stress. If you wanted, you could practice with a friend beforehand to try to simulate the chaos. And my fifth tip is to follow up effectively. After this panel interview, send a follow-up email. Thank the main point of contact, and then ideally send a follow-up email to the panelists, all who are present, as well. It's a small move that shows you're detail-oriented and enthusiastic about the position. If you're not quite sure where to start when it comes to sending these follow-up emails, I've got an entire playlist on the topic. So if you haven't already watched that, I've linked to it in the description box below. Master these 5 tips, and your panel interviews will not feel so stressful. So there you have it. That's my full guide to surviving and thriving during a panel interview. The panel interview might feel like a lot at first, but really it's no different than a one-on-one interview. There's just more people present. With a little bit of prep and the right mindset, you'll be able to confidently walk into that panel interview and impress them when you've walked out the door or exited the screen. So you got this. And if you're looking for additional support as you prepare for this upcoming interview, please let me know. I offer one-on-one interview strategy sessions where I work with people just like you to feel more confident and prepared for their upcoming interviews. If this is something you're interested in, my sessions fill up quickly. So I've linked to my website as well as my email in the description box below. Reach out to me today to schedule your session if that's something that you think would be helpful to you. If you found this video helpful, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you have any additional questions, comments, thoughts, or ideas, please throw them in the comments box below. I love receiving comments, and just know that if I'm not able to get back to you very quickly, sharing your experiences in the comments below will likely help someone who's going through something similar in the future. And as always, if you haven't already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well as the bell so that you can receive life, work, balance advice delivered directly to you every week. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.